Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and tonight we're going to be looking at time slips or hauntings. Are time slips actually people traveling in time where you go? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. Where you actually travel back in time, or are you actually just seeing the spirits of the dead, ghosts, hauntings? We're going to be talking about that tonight and having some fun. So feel free to leave some chats for me to read through so we can talk about this and sit back and enjoy yourselves because we're going to have some fun. But first, let's go look at some artwork, as always, of my upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs. This Scumdogs is a parody comic book. I parody the cartoons from the 80s. You'll see a lot of characters that will remind you of Transformers and Decepticons. You know, Transformers, Autobots, and Decepticons, G.I. Joe, and the like. So feel free to go and back it when it's up on Indiegogo. Scumdogs is just going to be fun. Now, the Scumdogs themselves, actual characters, they're basically parodies of villains you used to watch when you were a kid, when you were watching these cartoons. You'll see they're basically comedy versions of these characters. Well, okay, more comedy version because the original Saturday morning cartoon villains and stuff like that were pretty funny. Just what they were, just pretty damn funny. Were just funny and stuff. Now, they're led by Deathmug. He's the leader of the Scumdogs and stuff like that. He's the purple guy with the metal mask. Now, the Scumdogs, they're former pro athletes. See, in the future, because of transhumanism and genetic engineering, people transform themselves into superhuman monsters to compete in sporting events. They're called Scumdogs because they gave up their humanity to become monsters for money. They did it for fame and fortune. And as I said, they're led by Deathmug, the purple guy with the metal mask over here. He's an arrogant dictator who wants to rule the universe. He's based on various villains from 80s cartoons, at least the way he looks. Because he's got a skull face, much like Skeletor from He-Man was a skull face, see? But it's also, if you notice, a metal mask, a silver mask, much like a Cobra Commander. You know, Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe? Well, Cobra Commander, the leader of Cobra from G.I. Joe. He's as I said, he's an arrogant dictator who wants to rule the universe. He's got an overblown ego who thinks he should rule everything and wants all the money and fame he can get. He's fighting his archenemy Buick Starpoon, who's basically him and his team, the Wild Rangers, are basically G.I. Joe parodies, as well as parodies of characters from the space operas like Star Trek and Star Wars, or maybe Star Trek. Because if you notice his green and white uniform, it looks like something from Star Trek, doesn't it? In fact, anyone on this cover with a similar uniform to Buick Starpoon is part of his team, the Wild Rangers. Now, they're G.I. Joe parodies and stuff like that. So you get the idea. Each of them is a funny soldier type character with silly attributes and stuff like that. While Buick Starpoon is your classic overblown egotistical military type guy who never listens to anyone's opinion, and just keeps going his own way, which constantly blows up in his face and stuff like that. That's Buick Starpoon. Now, because they're G.I. Joe parodies, that means each of the guys on this cover who are part of the Wild Rangers each has a military specialty, much like a G.I. Joe. It just means they have special skills and abilities that allow them to fight terrorists like the Scumdogs. Either they're supremely skilled soldiers or pilots, or maybe they're spies. You get the idea. Over here is one of Buick Starpoon's Wild Rangers. His name is Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's a soldier. He used to be part of the United States Army. That's right there. Then you have this bald guy with a gun down here in the lighter blue uniform. His name is Beach Pounder. He's a Marine. Then you have this guy back here in the red uniform driving that vehicle, firing off his missiles. His name is Blast Tank. His military specialty is that he's a heavy vehicle specialist. You know, a tanker. He drives around tanks and stuff. That's pretty good and stuff like that. Let's see. This cover is one of 3 different variant covers you can back. So when it goes live, go and back my book on Indiegogo. I work on it every day, folks. Let's look at another member of the Wild Rangers, Girl Friday. Girl Friday is basically a parody on the Girl Friday archetype kind of character. If you know anything about characters that are called Girl Fridays, they're basically female soldiers that are in love with their superior officers and follow them around like little puppies. The joke here is that she's Buick Starpoon's second in command and she hates his guts. She was assigned to the Wild Rangers to basically be, the minder and handler for the team, because while the Wild Rangers fight the scum dogs and save the universe. They're also complete morons and idiots. So she was assigned to be their Buick's second in command to basically mind and handle them. Over here we have Death Mug's henchmen, because in all 80s cartoons, every Saturday morning cartoon villain would have henchmen, and they do the main villain's bidding, but they'd usually be complete morons. These are my idiots. The big fat pink guy down here with shape-shifting powers is Sloppy, and the blue guy with the top hat up here is Murder Mouth. These guys are basically a parody of Bebop and Rocksteady from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or basically any henchman from an 80s cartoon. And they're going to be fun, and you're going to love them when you read about them in my graphic, when you read about them and stuff like that. Here we have Hair Metal Doctor. He is basically another parody character. He's a member of the Scum Dogs. As you see, he's not a monster like the others. That's because he was hired by Death Mug to be his mad scientist. See, there's a character from G.I. Joe who was part of Cobra called Dr. Mindbender, a mad scientist. I decided to make my own mad scientist and make him a hair metal musician as well, because I think that's cool. He thinks of all the machines and stuff the Scum Dogs use to try and take over the universe. He does it while being Hair Metal Doctor. And here we have Miss Rusty Melons, who's another parody character. She joined the Scum Dogs too. Now, she basically finances and bankrolls the Scum Dogs because, well, she's rich and famous, and, well, she's rich. She's the CEO. She's the CEO of her own company, and she's a parody character. She's a parody of the Baroness from G.I. Joe, who's one of those femme fatale characters, but it's saying like my Baroness character, a dumb blonde from California. She joined up with the Scum Dogs because she was bored and she wanted some excitement in her life, so she became a villain and stuff like that. I think that pretty much sums up all the characters in my book, so go look out for Scum Dogs when it goes live. Okay. Now, let's go over to Indiegogo real quick and look at some Indiegogos before we get into time slips and hauntings. Huntsman. A supersized Huntsman triple threat. $407 US raise, 39 days left. Let's look at this book. All right. About 3 issues, but the recent passing of Steve Perrin accelerated the production of these 3 issues of Huntsman, all of which feature Huntsman stories by Steve, not only to get them into print as part of a single issue, but also to help raise money that will help finance the production of Steve's final, well, comic and stuff like that. That final Steve Perrin Huntsman tells a 28-page story in which the Huntsman meets the time-traveling hero Smith before his passing. Steve plotted out that tale and wrote some of the dialogue. As soon as it's possible, we want to get the artwork for that story completed to get the Huntsman Smith crossover story into print. Each of these 3 issues of Huntsman is a supersized 52-page comic book featuring multiple stories about the multiple characters. In Huntsman 6, the Huntsman takes on Dr. Demonic, classic adventure wrapping multiple characters, huh? In Huntsman 6, Huntsman takes on Dr. Demonic in that class. All right. This looks good, doesn't it, folks? Let me reread that again. I didn't think I said. Let me say that again. Yeah. In Huntsman 6, the Huntsman takes on Dr. Demonic in the classic adventure, wrapping it up. After that, it's a homecoming for Attorney Smith, plus an encounter with the mysterious Tesseract. Then the occult detective psychic finds himself having to deal with demons in the night. All of this plus a bonus lesson in history from the Liberty Girl. Huntsman 7 features a special trip. Okay. Okay, interesting. Not bad. Okay, let's see this. You can back Huntsman digital issue Huntsman 4 USD. 3 digital Huntsman issues $12. 1 physical issue of Huntsman $15. Huntsman 3 issue set $35. Okay, that's not bad for all 3 issues, and they're 52 pages each, so that's not too bad. So basically, each book is about 40. Is just a graphic novel length story and stuff like that. Okay, so let me see here. That's about 6 issues. Each book is, huh? Okay, not too bad, not too bad. Looks pretty good. Go back to Huntsman. It looks like it's easily affordable and you can get it for a good price. All right, there's Door Kickers Bad Medicine, which was made 5,462. The door kickers find themselves fighting in Brazil in this military horror graphic novel. It looks pretty good. Right? From the wild Amazon, let's read the story about this book. From the wild Amazon jungle, gritty streets, the door kickers are on the track of an international threat with the power to use the same supernatural abilities that the Enhanced Security Directorate has equipped the door kickers of the Wildfire team. Looks good. You can back this book, Door Kickers 2, cover A for $25. You also have cover B, and there's even a cover C. Or is there a cover C and stuff like that? Looks pretty good. You can also get the first issue of Door Kickers, or you can also get leftover copies of Door Kickers 1, plus the second issue for $60, and that looks great as well. So go back Door Kickers. It looks like a great book. Let's look at this trailer first, though. All right, that was Door Kickers. It looks good. Go back. It's up on Indiegogo. Let's go look at some more books. Let's see. There's Thin Blue Line for Mike Barron. Go back this book. It's made $17,456. It's got 6 days left. Let's go look at this campaign. Let's look at this trailer.
Beginning with issue number 1, Mike Barron wrote Marvel's The Punisher for over 5 years, approaching it as a straight crime comic, without any superheroes, aliens, or robots. Over the course of 60 issues, Barron elevated the gritty anti-hero into one of the most popular and enduring characters in the Marvel Comics universe. Now he brings that same ultra-realistic intensity to his latest graphic novel, Thin Blue Line. In the middle of a long, hot summer, a police shooting ignites the city. Activists, opportunists, and provocateurs descend to riot, loot, burn, and kill. Thin Blue Line follows Officer Valeria Baca and her partner as their detail guarding the mayor turns into a battle for survival. Ride along on this harrowing tale of 2 brave law enforcement officers fighting for their community and their own survival in a world gone mad. Eisner winner Mike Barron has created an alarming tale that unflinchingly examines human fallibility on every level. Along with penciler Joe Arnold, himself a full-time police officer, and talented inker Jeff Slemons, they've created a moving and entertaining story ripped straight from today's headlines. Thin Blue Line exposes the defund the police movement and its consequences for society, but several comic book companies have refused to publish it. Now we're asking you to join the effort to distribute it independently and help support the men and women of law enforcement. Get your copy of the only graphic novel to offer an unflinching and not always flattering look at the men and women of law enforcement during a time when we need them the most. Not all heroes wear capes. It's a thin blue line between the rule of law.
And that looks great. Go back it, folks. Go back Thin Blue Line. Looks great. You can back this book for $25, and that looks good. So go back it, folks. It's up on Indiegogo. Now, we've been at this a while, so let's go over and look at some time slips now. Well, or hauntings and stuff like that. Which researcher claims, let's see about this. Mysterious time slips on my Liverpool Street. Time slips. Cases of time slips. Should I do this? Strange tales of time travel, space-time warps, and temporal slips. Yeah, let's go look at cases of time slips. That should give us an idea of what these are. It's basically when something happens, you're living your life, you're just living your life, and one day for some odd reason, you find yourself literally back in time. Sometimes people see you, or sometimes you see people and stuff like that from the past. You see buildings that have been long demolished, and you look around and you see people, and you wonder, what could that possibly mean? You got to wonder to yourself, are you actually in the past, or are you actually seeing into the past, or are you actually just seeing a haunting? Is that what we're seeing? Is that what this actually is? That something happened, and for some odd reason, you don't only just see a ghost, you see the entire past where they lived. That's what we're going to be looking at tonight, folks. A white Ford pickup pulled up to the cattle pasture near Ponce City, Oklahoma in early fall of 1971 and stopped at a gate. Carl, Mark, and Gordon worked for cattle feed distributor and were sent to this remote area to pick up a feeder. What they found there has kept them silent for 41 years. We opened the gate, which was barbed wire and with no lock, and entered. Carl said we went on the property, which was covered with grass up to over the hood of the truck. They drove through the tall grass to the tank that sat close to a red barn and got out of the truck. We realized the tank was almost half full and too heavy to load. Carl said we decided to leave and drove around in the red barn, and we saw a large 2-story white house with no lights in front of us. The trio drove back to the cattle feed company, and the boss said he'd drain the tank and they could pick it up tomorrow. We went to the location to retrieve the tank, and the next night Carl said that this time we decided to go through the old white big house on the hill and brought our shotguns. They drove into the property over the path they'd made through the grass the day before and loaded the tank. Then they pulled around the barn toward the house. What they saw burned into their memories. It was no longer there, Carl said. We walked up to the hill where it stood, and there was no signs of demolition, no foundation, nothing at all. What we all seemed to witness the night before was no longer there. We have talked to each other over the years, but none of us can begin to explain this vision. Did these men witness a slip in time, or was it a haunting? Did they see a place where spirits dwell? Did they see a ghostly house? Is that what they saw? I mean, I gotta wonder what they actually saw, but you get the idea. One day you're living your life, and then suddenly you see something from the past, or you're in the past. Did they actually time travel, or are you just seeing spirits? And that's what they saw. We don't know. No one really knows. Time slips have been reported throughout history. English women vacationing in France in 1901 claimed they stepped into the French Revolution. 2 English couples traveling in Spain in the 1970s stayed at an oddly archaic hotel that was simply gone on their return journey. Physicists like Albert Einstein, Michio Kaku, and Stephen Hawking have all said time travel is theoretically possible. Our scientists can't achieve it. But what if nature can? The light in the sky shone white far from the greens and reds Jack saw during the Aurora Borealis of 2004, visible in North America as far south as the lower Midwest. Jack, 15, stood outside his parents' home in the Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri, around 10 p.m., 20th May, leaning against a truck and looking at the lights. He didn't know his life was about to change. A bright white glow suddenly filled the northern horizon, he said. This looked nothing like the northern lights, nor did it behave like them. The light moved like the light of a copy machine. The single bar of brightness moved from east to west over Jack's head and disappeared. I thought that I should maybe go inside at this time and found myself unable to move, he said. Numbness grew in his arms and legs, and he blacked out. When he woke, he knew he'd been somewhere else. I felt woozy and almost sedate, he said. Time seemed muddled in my head. We walked into the house and to find he'd been outside an hour. It took most of the night for me to tell my parents what happened, and most of the time I kept telling them that I thought the calendar was wrong. It should at least be after 2008. He said, to this day, my mother remembers bits of this mainly because I looked at her and asked point blank, "Is the black man president?" What happened to Jack Caesar? Psychological phenomena, or did Jack accidentally take a brief 4-year step into the 2008? Interesting. Jack's slip is just one in a long line of theories from people brushed against a different time, such as since a pilot, Sir Victor Godard, who encountered airplanes in 1935 that didn't exist until 1939, and a 100-year-old Swiss watch found in a Chinese Ming Dynasty tomb. People may slip like this all the time. All right. Cal opened the door of his 1999 Chevrolet S10 next to a convenience store gas pump in Springfield, Missouri, when a large man accosted him. As I left the gas station, some large melon-headed man dressed in a business suit yelled, "What year is it?" Cal said the man stood at a spot Cal would have walked by when he left the store, but he hadn't seen him. The man wore a dark black suit with a fiber texture, Cal said, along the lines of the things Teddy Roosevelt could wear. What year is it? The man yelled. The man was white, about 35 years old, clean-shaven, normal, but he'd asked no odd question. Cal answered, 2003, Cal told him. The man's face contorted in anger. What year is it? He screamed it. Again, I said 2003. The large man screamed the question one more time. I said 2003, so he could hear me. Cal said, then he quit asking. Cal glanced away from the man as he slid back in his truck, but safely inside. Cal turned to get another look at the man. The man was gone. He disappeared from the front of the gas station. Cal said, in the seconds it took Cal to slip into his truck, the man simply vanished. Cal looked, but the man hadn't stepped inside the store, the only place he could have gone in that short amount of time he was just gone. These stories are not just so rare as people think, Cal said, but the stories are so bizarre that I didn't think anyone would want to come forward to tell it. Who would? Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. What do you think about that, folks? Do you think it's real or not? I mean, I find it very interesting. Do you think this guy actually saw this guy? He was dressed like he was from the time of it sounds like he was dressed like from the Second World War or so, or maybe during the 1930s. So that's very weird. Oh, okay. It said Teddy Roosevelt. Actually, that would be turn of the century then. That's very odd. But you get an idea what time slips are now, huh? And that's the kind of articles we'll be looking at tonight. Time slip experience, the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Okay. A Navy veteran recalls a possible time slip incident regarding the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. The witness drove through a portal on his way through Canada. In June 1975, I separated from active duty in the U.S. Navy. I was stationed in Argentina, Newfoundland, a joint Canadian and U.S. military facility. Upon separation, I drove from the eastern portion of the Newfoundland Avalon Peninsula to Minnesota along a long drive, including some ferry trips. To say the least, I had never been one to listen to the radio much, but this trip was an exception. So I listened first to Canadian stations and then the local U.S. stations. As the trip progressed, the Canadian stations frequently played ballads and songs by Gordon Lightfoot, something of a national hero in Canada. I distinctly remember listening to this song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, thinking it was a striking tribute to the sinking of the ship and the loss of its crew. Having just served in the Navy, this song had a more immediate impact on me. I also remember not hearing any reports of a Great Lakes ship sinking in recent years at that time, so I thought this song was about an older nautical tragedy. I thought, time permitting, I would research it, but never got around. That was June 1975. In November 1975, the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald made the news. I was puzzled to learn this, thinking the reporting of it was some kind of mix-up, but I was then busy in school and didn't think any more of it. Then in 1976, Gordon Lightfoot released his song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which was nominated for a Grammy Award. I learned of this event, but again, being busy with school, I again didn't think much of it. It wasn't until sometime later that I realized the inconsistency of my listening to that song in June of 1975. The actual event in November 1975 and the release of the Grammy nomination, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald in 1976. Perhaps I am remembering incorrectly, but I think not. Okay, there's an interesting story to think about. What do you think about that, folks? Heard a song on the radio before it was even made. I said, leave me a few chats, will you? I want to hear your ideas on this, folks. What could this possibly mean? Did his radio somehow pick up a transmission from the future? I've heard of these sort of things before, like phantom broadcasts, where people get transmissions from the past or from the future. The legend lives on from Chippewa on down the big lake they called Gitchgimi. I guess that's the song, huh? Among the photos that Edmund Fitzgerald, the Great Lakes explorer Frederick Shenge, shared was an image of two unexplored orbs or burning objects about the size of a golf balls. I don't want to get copyright struck because that's the song, isn't it? Or something. Known as Image 2028, the photo was among more than 1,000 taken by Shannon from inside two-person Delta submarine while hovering 530 feet below the surface of Lake Superior, the starboard light side of the Fitzgerald bow in July 1994. No debris was in the water. Nothing was dropped from the surface. Shannon said there is no logical explanation for their sudden appearance. Among the photos of Edmund Fisher, the Great Lakes explorer Frederick Shen was an image of two unexplored orbs or burning objects about the size of golf balls. Oh yeah, these things. So are they ghosts? Known as the image, the photo was among more than 1,000 taken by Shen from inside two-person Delta submarine while hovering 530 feet below. So, the lake, the surface of Superior of the starboard right side of the Fitzgerald bow in July 1994. No debris was in the water and nothing was dropped from the surface. Shan said there was no logical explanation for their sudden appearance. The objects, which left a trail of bubbles in the market photo. Yeah, that is weird that they're making bubbles as well. Flew toward and disappeared in the hull of the ship, he said. Fitzgerald mystery lives on. The mystery, the history, that song. Whatever the reason, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald endures subject of endless fascination. That doesn't surprise me, Tom Fingras, executive director of the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society, said Monday as he fielded an annual round of calls about the November 10th anniversary of the disaster. The ceremony that will mark it Wednesday at Whitewash Point. There are school kids who do not report on it, and they just get obsessed into it. Report on it, huh? There are kids who do a report on it, huh? And become obsessed with it into adulthood. He said it happened recently enough in 1975 that a lot of people are still around who remember it. And there are still probably more questions and theories that answer. There's a full explanation for all the other shipwrecks, but nothing was ever conclusive about the Fitzgerald. There were no survivors in that song. That song is the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, the Canadian troubadour Gordon Lightfoot, which, despite its grim subject, climbed number 2 on the Billboard pop charts within a year of the disaster and replayed on radio stations around the country every November. Lightfoot was initially subjected to some criticism for making a commercial success of the tragedy. I guess he would be, wouldn't he, folks? What do you think about that, huh? I mean, honestly, I have no idea. Here we're reading this article on this time slip as well as these spirits. So I think it's very odd that those two orbs were taken, had pictures taken of them, and they were just odd, period. I mean, what could they be? I mean, were they actually the spirits of the dead crew of the Edmund Fitzgerald? I mean, I don't know, but you saw what they were like. I mean, there was definitely something physically there, not just lights, but there was something that was making the reacting with the water there. And then they disappear by going through the hull of the ship. Maybe they were aliens. I don't know. But I am curious about it. I'm very curious. But let's get back to this article. Lightfoot was out of tragedy, but insisted, as we get back to where we were here, but insisted that the song was a tribute. The success, he was criticized for the commercial success of the tragedy, but insisted that the song was a tribute to the crew and today enjoys a good relationship with the families of the men who died, who were taken and stuff. He came here in 95 for the ceremony, and my family asked him to never stop singing it because it is keeping those men alive. All right. He said about a dozen of relatives of the 29-man crew lost on the Fitzgerald are expected at Whitefish Point for this year's observation. The Society's museum at that point, the nearest land to the wreck site, houses the 200-pound bell from the Fitzgerald, which was recovered in 1995. The shipwreck museum at the end of a road leading to Lake Superior is only open May 1st to October 31st. Yeah, this happened on that lake. Up where we are, you have to want to drive here. You're not going to happen upon us, Fingras said. They want to know about the Fitzgerald. Some people are just want to stand on the shore and look out at the lake as if they want to feel it. At 729 feet long, the Fritz was a giant among lakes freighters. It lies, or should I say lake freighters. It lies only about 550 feet of water, a testament to the force of nature of the Great Lakes. That may be some of the allure of the Fitzgerald story here in the Great Lakes state, where you can grow up being warned, don't argue with the lakes, and get quickly to shore when skies darken. People from elsewhere who have no concept of the scope of the lakes or the fury that can unleash may wonder how such a mighty vessel could be destroyed in waters not nearly as deep as the boat was long. But those who have seen the lakes angry, those who know that the loss of the Fritz was in fact far from the worst of many Great Lakes tragedies, understand the power that comes with the beauty around us. Each year around now, they think about those 29 men and their mighty ship, and they wonder, as Gordon Lightfoot did, does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? This I read more of that song. I hope that's not a problem. But it's interesting to think about, huh? So, yeah. So maybe look at radio time slips. Radio time slips. So if you can't get anything there. Very strange accounts of bizarre time anomalies, strange cases of missing time, the strange psychic mystery of many Craig's and Killer, the perils of the paranormal putting threads together that have no real connections. Mysterious islands that vanish without a trace. Maybe I should just put radios. Radios. Come spend a night in some of the most haunted hotel rooms around. That fungus may be the key to safe travel. A very bizarre. I was hoping to look at more stories about basically these mystery broadcasts. Don't see them. Maybe I should put radio broadcasts. Broad. Did I misspell broad? Let me look that up. All right. Broadcasts. Yeah, I spelled it right. Or rather, sort of right. Get back over here. Just making sure I got that right. Doesn't need to be separated. So let's do that. Radio broadcasts. Strange airwaves, mysterious and spooky unexplained radio broadcasts. Biological radio can some animals. Mysterious radio signals heard from deep within the earth. We'll look at this real quick. I want to look at a few more stories about that. Let's see. Is it American for most of this come to be known as? Oh yeah, this doesn't really have anything to do with that. This is basically unexplained radio broadcasts. Some of the strangest and most puzzling mysteries are all around us right now, buzzing through the air right past us without us ever knowing, being aware of them. For years, the airwaves have been the haunt of bizarre signals, transmissions, and broadcasts that have been called out into the atmosphere and pervaded the space all around us, unbeknownst to us all. But the most intrepid radio enthusiasts have equipped and willing to hunt them down. These transmissions carry with them enigmatic messages that defy all attempts to understand them, and which have origins shrouded in secrecy and shadows. We don't know where they come from, but who they are meant for, or what they are saying, but they continue to taunt and whirl around us on their inscrutable agendas. Here we will look at some of the more infamous and bizarre of these weird broadcasts from nowhere. Perhaps the most well-known mysterious radio signal is an enigmatic and well-persistent broadcast from Russia that has come to be known as Station UVB-76. The station was first recorded in 1982, although it is surmised to have been around since perhaps the 70s, mid-1970s, and has continuously produced a wide range of odd and perplexing transmissions. Okay, that's not really what we're talking about here. I guess I should just go look at some other time slip stories. I wonder about that. Very strange accounts of time travel anomalies. I could look at that, but it doesn't really have time slips in it, does it? Researcher claims time slips have trapped thousands of Brits in the past. Mysterious time slips on Liverpool streets. So let's look at this one here. Have you ever suddenly found yourself surroundings that seem familiar yet out of place within current time? Did you feel stuck there watching events take place that appear to be decades or even centuries in the past? Did you just as suddenly find yourself back in the present with no explanation, drugs, brain injury, wizard, time machine for this experience? If you're wondering, folks, I decided just to skip trying to find more mysterious radio transmissions from the past or future. Or, just radio transmissions that basically have come from the past when they sort of long been since expired for some odd reason, those kinds of time slips, and just move on to different time slip stories right here. So let's get back to this article we're reading now. For this experience, you may have fallen into what is known as a time slip, a popular plot device in science fiction to facilitate time travel. Many people believe time slips are real. Paranormal researcher and author Rodney Davis is one of them. A recent article about time slips in the Daily Mail, including his warnings that many disappearances in Great Britain, perhaps thousands of them, are due to people falling into time slips and becoming trapped in the past. Do they take keys and socks too? Of these people who fall into the time slips, some have returned to relate their adventures, while others have left notice of their strange exploits in the form of objects fossilized in solid rocks or as footprints impressed thereon. In 2019 book Time Slips, Journeys into the Past and the Future, Davis tells accounts of those who have claim to have experienced them, but he tells the Daily Mail they are difficult to explain. One theory states that past, the present, and future are all one, but our limited consciousness can only experience time by being in what we know as the present. While some people experience brief flashes in the past surrounding the area they're in, some have told him they've spent long periods there, walking around, conversing with people, interacting with their surroundings, perhaps even living there for a time. He presents stories of modern items found in fossils as evidence. Well, there have been some very odd discoveries. I researched stories of strange machinery found in the 18th century by 18th century laborers and jewelry discovered in seams of coal. In the book, he links the so-called ancient aliens, the time slippers. The author suggests that many of the ancient deities were in fact time travelers who have discovered the technique of time slipping, went back to take practical skills and moral guidance to earlier peoples, but who found that their self-seeking benevolence created unanticipated problems for themselves. This implies that one can master time slipping, which means one must know where these time slip portals exist. The Daily Mail conveniently lists a few based on stories like those in Dave's book, Devon and Crampton's Castle, Cornwall, Kent and Leeds Castle, and on Liverpool's Bold Street, which many investigators attribute to the subway trains running in concentric circles beneath it, spinning up in a time slip. Okay. Could time slips... let me reread that. Could time slips... maybe I should go back here as well. Let's see. Castle and on Liverpool's Bold Street, which many investigators attribute to the subway trains running in concentric circles beneath it, spinning up in a time slip. That's an interesting idea right there. Could time slips explain many of the mysteries vanishings around the world? Are the time slippers Davis writes about real hallucinations or hoaxes? Could time slips explain Bigfoot or some other cryptids, aliens, gods, or are they just a sci-fi plot device used when no other explanation works for mysterious disappearance? Davis seems more worried about the thousands of Brits he thinks are caught in the past. How can they be returned if you're in Liverpool, never go anywhere without some way to get on the subway? Okay. It is all very strange. Very strange right there to think about. So you go over here. I want to see. Hit that like button if you have not yet, folks. I really want you to hit that like button as well as leave me a few chats, will you, folks? Hitting that like button means more people are seeing my content, and it helps me fight the algorithm, and that'll bring out my graphic novel Scumdogs all the sooner, folks. All right. Also, hit that notification bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the notification bell for all future notifications. And please share this video out on Twitter and Facebook and Gab. We got a few more articles to read through here. Strange tales of time travel, space time warps, and temporal slips. Okay, let's read this article. Very interesting. While generally relegated to the realm of fiction, long been fascinated with the subject of real time travel. Hence, I've also kept a watchful eye out for those occasional stories about individuals who claim they have managed to visit locations where some sort of strange warpage of time and space may have occurred. In the past, no pun intended here, at Mysterious Universe, I have written about such instances, which include the curious recollections of Bruce Gernon, who claims to have flown in light aircraft through such a warpage in space and time while en route to Bimini several years ago. You can read my article about Gernon's story here. One other piece is Bimini, huh? That's very strange. The Bimini Road was found in Bimini. At least I'm pretty sure that, yeah, I know the Bimini Road. But it sounds strange that this should be a time slip in an area that's, well, with the Bimini Road, because the Bimini Road is thought to be remains of Atlantis. Okay. About it here. Other pieces with similar themes include my analysis on the archetypical elements present within culture. Ooh, Bianca Zombie. Aloha, dude. Aloha, Bianca Zombie. Tonight we're reading about time slips or hauntings. Are they people actually traveling time, or are they actually just seeing ghosts? I mean, if you see someone from the past, is it just someone who actually slipped through time with a time slip, like that, through a portal in time? Or are you actually seeing a ghost of someone who died a long time ago? We're talking about those kinds of stories, folks, tonight. So sit back and enjoy my show. Let's get back to this article. Other pieces with similar themes include my analysis on the archetypical elements present within cultural references to supposed time travel. I discussed in this article. Okay. Often referred to as time slips, such instances often are said to involve specific locations where those visiting will notice unusual phenomena that appears to indicate a change in the surrounds, indicative of by some physical means backward in time to an earlier period. Granted, nothing about the known laws of physics in the modern world can account for such a thing. Even the more widely publicized incidents that involve such supposed phenomenon remain questionable, which include what is known as the Versailles time slip incident. The case in question involved two women who claimed to have traveled to the past while visiting the gardens of the Palace of Versailles. Oh, geez, I almost got it right this time. Versailles, I think, in 1901. And in response to the woman's odd claims of time travel, a number of equally bizarre scenarios have been offered to explain the circumstances, which include the notion that sexual tensions between the observers might have contributed to the confusion about their surroundings. However, a skeptical researcher, Brian Denning, noted in 2012 there have never any need for authors to introduce lesbian madness and transvestite follies to explain their erroneous perception. Mobley and Jordan were simply human, and that in itself is the most complex explanation of all. Indeed, there are a number of ways someone may from time to time claim to experience strange circumstances that appear to be well removed from the average and everyday, yet which remain easily explainable just as well. In equal measure, there are certain instances that seem to push the boundaries of recognized physical phenomenon, whether or not time travel is involved in any way. Such was the case with a unique email I received from a listener of mine some time ago, who related a very strange story about a hike that occurred in Ohio, in which he and his companion noted odd changes to their surroundings, which appeared to them to escape simple explanation. The message reads as follows: "Hello to Mr. Hanks and Company. I wish to relate something to you that happened to me and a friend a while ago. First, I am 32 years old and I currently live in Pennsylvania, but I am originally from Ohio. I am often skeptical of some of these claims, but after listening to a Mysterious Universe and Garland report, I had to open my mind back up a little bit about preternatural things like spirits, ghosts, maybe other things, etc., etc. So onto my account. Back in September of 2008, my best friend Sierra, pronounced Sierra, and I went to park named Hopkins Hills in Ohio for a day retreat from our busy lives. We had decided on this at random when we first got together. Early in the morning, just after sunrise, it was a nice, warm, light summer day. We just got to the wild notion to go for a drive. Uh, all right. To Huckin Hills. Since this area is well known for its several walking trails, I'm going to give this guy an accent here, okay? Huckin Hills. All right. Some kind of accent. I'm going to try to give him an accent at least. Something to make it a little more fun here. Walking trails are a cave or two and several waterfalls, running water, Greek areas. The day was very warm, maybe roughly 70 degrees Fahrenheit. 21 degrees Celsius, so we had worn shorts and short-sleeved T-shirts. The park was full of people. There were walking families, couples, and a lot more all over the place. We started down a trail we had taken many times before, one that would focus us to cross a paved road near its end in order to continue, and played with our mobile phones. I remember it was roughly around 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern at the time, and we kept walking forwards around a small hill and up the steeper part of the trail, which was near the road. As we walked, we were passed by a group of backpackers before we reached the road, and one of the people turned around to warn us to be aware of a washout up ahead if we're going to take the trail into the woods across the road. They recommended we follow the one next to the fire tower instead, as it bypassed a small clump of downed brush. The guy pointed to a small branch off the main road to our left and told us good luck or something like that. We walked up to the little trail, and I remember Sierra starting the path we were on wasn't showing on her park map applications on her phone. I recall telling her it was most likely new or something done for the washout. That was about the end of our conversation, and we moved on. We crossed under where the power lines were strung up into another part of the woods and ended up near the road. As we crossed it to the tower trail, just across from where we stood, I noticed there was a caution tape all over the fire tower. There was a pungent smell in the air which we could not identify. The windows on top of the tower appeared to be taped up, grimy, and there were flies over the area. We walked past it, commenting on how odd it was, and continued down the trail we had been recommended to take, but it was one neither of us had noticed before on a previous walk to the area. Really? Really. This trail took us past the fire tower and then cut into the woodlands. As we walked into the forest, maybe a couple of 100 feet or so, we took notice that no one seemed to be around. And in fact, not only did we feel isolated from others, but we felt very chilled without explanation. Sierra pointed out verbally while I was thinking, but we just continued walking. Eventually, the air started to get noticeably chiller and damper. This did not seem unusual at first, but as we continued to walk, the air seemed to go from warm to what felt like the mid-50s Fahrenheit, 10 Celsius, and we started to shiver. Was also getting darker as we continued forward. At first, I thought it was just due to the green leaves on the trees and maybe a passing cloud overhead, but the darkness really did not improve as we expected. As we walked around and there were nothing but trees on all sides, there should have been a forest edge somewhere on it, as the area wasn't really that big aside from some hills. This sounds interesting, huh, folks? Let's keep on with this. And tall pine trees. There wasn't a real ending to the woods. We expected to see the edge near the road. My friend took out her phone and used her GPS because she instinctively lost, but her battery was nearly gone. I took mine out of my back pocket, and it was also near the dead. The clock on it showed EE for the time, meaning it couldn't update, as it was an older style slide phone with a keyboard and camera that, when we set out to auto adjust, would contact the mobile phone network every 15 minutes for time updates. It was only then, as the light grew dimmer, that I noticed the area seemed so silent. Our footsteps, the leaves we stepped on, grass, twigs, and our breathing just echoed. But there were no animal noises. Sarah got spooked, and I did too. She mentioned it was very out of the ordinary, and I agreed, but I couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that something was amiss. I tried to rationalize it, but I really honestly couldn't figure any of it out at all. We just pressed onwards, and after going down a small hill and back up, we seemed to have gotten a lot darker, just like near sunset dark. My friend grabbed my arm and started freaking out about how weird it got. Then the air seemed to have gone still, and we had a feeling of something wrong. She dragged me as she took off, running forward, looking for an exit. For some odd reason, we never thought to turn around at all, and just got back though, and just got back the way we came. It never seemed to occur to us as we ran, but the spookiness continued as we could hear our steps echo off into the area, as things just felt like they grew more gloomy feeling. Then ahead of us, down another small dip in the trail, we could see two large honeysuckle bushes on either side of the trail, like a gate. We made a mad dash for these bushes, and just as we pushed through the plants, something odd happened. We were overwhelmed by a change in our surroundings as light, sound, and warmth returned all at once. It was like stepping outside of a cold, empty, and dark building to a warm, bushy busy street. We stood at the edge of a place known as Ash Cave, which has a large waterfall not too far away with a U-shaped cliff. I turned around to look back from where we emerged, and while the bushes were the same, the area was so different. Brighter, not silent, for sure, because there were hikers near the falls, and warmer. In fact, our skin was cold to touch, which just reinforced the strangeness. We took a moment to rest from that little run. Logic attempted to set in, and we had decided the trail we came up must have just appeared creepy, because there may have been clouds overhead, or a storm blew but when we went back between the bushes, there was no trail. Nothing looked like it had a few seconds ago. Sierra walked around the bushes twice, and it was the same bright sunny day. Sierra, with no darkness and no trail, we waited. It was blue sky overhead, and we could see the edge of the forest and other people. The trail had simply vanished as we had never walked it. On returning to the normal trail we were used to and headed back, we took out our phones. At the time it finally updated. It was now 4 p.m. The normal trail would only have taken an hour to walk fully. So it was a loss of 3. Well, this sounds almost like it was an abduction event, doesn't it? It sounds like missing time as well, possibly. Like maybe they were abducted and they hallucinated that. Or maybe they basically seen a ghost. Maybe it was actually spiritual that they saw. But either way, or maybe it was time travel. If it was a ghost, if it was somehow something, some spirit manipulating them, it really took its number. It really did a job on them. Let me clear my throat here. Whatever did this to these people is really out there, isn't it, folks? Let's get back to this article. It was a loss. It was a loss of 3 full hours. When we ended back near the fire tower on the normal trail, we noticed it was normal looking, as the windows were no longer taped and very crystal clean. And there was no pungent smell. We didn't know what it was, but it certainly was creepy. Of course, I jokingly told her later that day over dinner we had entered the fairy realms by mistake. Yeah, it could be very well that was ultra-terrestrial. It could very well have been ultra-terrestrials. And let's get back to this. And we're lucky to get away. She didn't find that funny, of course, but either way, we both felt we should share this with you. And if anyone out there has had a similar experience, they can provide insight on their own. I also mapped out the spot. I mentioned it at GPS Google codes. Where we parked 39.417079. A bunch of others. Where the trail head is 39 blah 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 blah. Where the trail goes by the washout went. If you want to know where this place is, you go to this article yourself, okay, folks? Because I don't really want to read all these numbers. Where we crossed the road, Ranger Fire Tower, the main trail, the mysterious side trail, which is not there. Where we came out, or when we crossed the bushes. Yeah, some guy sent them out on that trail. Don't you find it odd that some guy said to use that trail, and they went on it, and all this weird stuff happened, but when they got off that trail, they couldn't find the trail again. When they came back to the regular trail, that is. Yeah. We also have where we logically should have come out. Yeah. And we see that. We passed the bushes. From reading this email, I will. How much more of this is there left of this? Okay, not that much more. Okay, from reading this email, I will note, despite my general skepticism towards such stories, that the author brought a very level tone with the message related above. But what can we make of it altogether? Yeah, let me read. Yes, here. Let's read that, huh? Let's do that again. I'll read that again. From reading this email, I will note, despite my general skepticism towards such stories, that the author brought a very level tone with the message related above. But what can we make of it together? Perhaps one need not assert that something akin to a time slip had occurred in order to question the nature of the apparent change the hikers reported in their surroundings. Still, the observations appear to indicate something out of the ordinary, whatever it may have been, underway at that time. This message, which I featured on my podcast, The Grellian Report, inspired another listener with a similar story to come forward and share his own encounter, which took place in Northern Ireland, and which in 2008. At that time, I was let's see, get this. Try this. Let's see if I can't get let's see if I can't get an accent going here. At the time, I was staying in the town of Derry in Northern Ireland, laddie, and decided to take a day trip via public transit to the beach town of Buncana. The bus trip seemed to take much longer than expected, and when I asked the lassies, asked the driver, lassies and blokes on the bus, I decided then, well, when I asked the driver which stop was to Buchanan, he laughed and said I had missed it ages ago. Not only that, but this bus service was inconvenient, and the next one going back in the direction from which we'd come wasn't going to be for several hours. Alas, I was sad. The driver let me off in a small village, the name of which escapes me, and I began hitchhiking back toward Derry. It was raining heavily that day, laddies and lasses, so I was lucky my first ride came quickly. Two older Irishmen who kindly took me back as far as Buchanan. Buchanan isn't a large place, so it was a short walk to the beach. From where the men dropped me off at some point in the drive, the rain had stopped as I arrived at the beach. The sky was clear in a late afternoon. Sorry if I'm basically offending any Irish people out there. I just trying to have some fun. Maybe what do you think about my Irish burg here, or basically Scottish burg? Trying to give him a bit of an accent, like in lasses and lasses, like that. So maybe I should try that again, huh? Maybe I should just give it up, huh? Kind of hard on the voice. I thought I was doing pretty well. I don't want to insult anyone, actually. So maybe I'll just skip that voice for a bit longer. Or maybe I should. It was a lovely. That didn't come out right at all. Let's see. Let's get back to where I was. At some point in the drive, the rain stopped, and as I arrived at the beach, the sky was clear in a late afternoon. Was beginning to set. This was in December. It was a lovely scene, but after a while, I noticed it was eerily quiet, and the only living thing I could see for any distance was a black dog, which turned up when I wasn't paying attention. Black dog? That's creepy. So you experience a time slip, and then you see a black dog. Oh boy! And when I wasn't paying attention, it was an unremarkable so far as dogs go. I know sweet piss all about dogs, but I think it was a black lab, but it behaved like in curious ways. Wherever I went along the grass near the beach, the dog followed, staying about 5 to 6 feet away. Whenever I stepped closer to him, he began to growl and bark. Eventually, this behavior and this quiet started to wig me out, and I began walking toward a large hotel, looking the water some distance away. My thinking was I'd have a cup of coffee harmlessly, and no doubt poorly flirt with a waitress, then head back to the highway and thumb a ride to Derry. The black dog paced me the entire trip to the hotel, maintaining the same amount of distance, and the closer I got to the hotel, the more nerved I was by the whole situation, the more desperate I got for that coffee and some human interaction. When I arrived at the hotel, the Innishowen Gate Hotel, I've since learned it's called, I was devastated to see that the whole place was boarded up, windows, etc., and just as deserted as everything else. What made this more odd than it might ordinarily be was the size of the place. This isn't a small hotel, and it's unusual to see a place that big in a spot that choice unoccupied. I didn't explore the building much because by this point the sun had passed the horizon, and I was still unnerved. Turning away from the hotel, I saw the black dog was gone just as quickly and quietly as he'd come. From the hotel, I walked along the water's edge to a boat launch where I watched a bank of fog roll down the hills across the water. By the time I looked away from the coming weather, there was a group of about 5 or 6 cats who had turned up to keep me company for whatever reason. Okay, there's I definitely see something supernatural going on here. Black dogs and now cats, and this basically around this guy now. This eased my mind a bit, and as I started walking back towards town, my memory of the day is murky. But the way I recall it, it went from a kind of a cavernous silence to a regular small town in a matter of moments. Suddenly there were people, cars, and noise. Soon enough there was a rain again, too. It took 2 rides to get back to Derry, the second of which was with a middle-aged man who had grown up in the area. We were talking about the scenery around Bancana, and he told me he'd been married in the hotel on the water. When I mentioned it was now closed, he sounded surprised. Apparently, the place is a bit of a local institution, but didn't press the subject further. As I said at the beginning of the story from yesterday's broadcast, brought this back to me. While it did sound a little too Silent Hill to be real, it also brought to mind Stephen King's short story Crouch's End. Crouches. The parallels with my experience, particularly the shuttered hotel, were hard to ignore, and so I decided to figure out which hotel it had been and see whether they had been closed during the winter of 2008. The clerk I spoke to at the Eisenhower Gateway Hotel this afternoon informed me that they do not close during winters, and as far as she knows, it was not shuttered during winter 2008. The story, like a lot of the strange and unusual things I've experienced, collected for a book project, which I won't shell until the ink is dry and later in June, is something for which I have no explanation. It tends to be something that comes up after a few drinks. I don't know that these events amount to or mean anything, but as a recent listener to the podcast, this is my 3rd week subscribing. I was enthused to have something to contribute. Any thoughts you may have on the subject are very welcome. Yet again, the witness in this instance claimed to have observed changes to his surroundings that were inconsistent with the area he had visited at the time. Had there indeed been a broader phenomenon occurring here, and if so, why did the hotel appear to be closed or abandoned at the time when this should not have rightly have been the case? The known laws of physics make such notions as time slips an extremely unreliable hypothesis. The known laws of physics, that's what you say anyway. If not one that is likely to be impossible, at least in conventional circumstances. Hence, if this explanation cannot be offered for stories that recount such odd environmental changes, what else about the circumstances may possibly influence the environment or the observers in a way, conductive to what they have seen? Okay, folks, I'm going to thank you all for joining me. This has been a pretty good live stream, huh? Please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics They're Bad For You. Remember, the there in the title is misspelled. It's THERE. When you basically tap in that search bar for Read Comics They're Bad For You on YouTube, the there is misspelled. Make sure you're still subscribed. And also, if you want to watch this live stream again, go to past live streams on my YouTube channel. It'll be right there. Or you can use the link on the pinned tweet on my Twitter page, which is at 777 megachris1. All right. Hit that like button because it helps me fight the algorithm so more people can see my content, and my graphic novel Scumdogs comes out all the sooner. Hit that notification bell and make sure to hit the part of the notification bell that will give you all future notifications. And please share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. Also, go and subscribe to Stitched Together Pics. Stitched Together Pics is a great YouTube channel, and you're going to love his content. As well as go over and subscribe to Robot Co-op, as well as Creepy Little Book. Remember, folks, I'll be back again tomorrow for another live stream around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, or 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or 11 o'clock p.m. So be sure to come back again then. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me.